Welcome back to Tales and Fails Miniatures. Today I'm very excited. We will be starting a brand new small series. I am attempting to recreate the D&D Alchemist shelf from I believe it's the DMG, and I've wanted to do it for a very long time. I'm actually, unfortunately, already part of the way through the project before I even started doing YouTube. So the top half is already built, but I will be building a complete custom bottom for the shelf. And at the end of the series, hopefully we'll be able to put it together with all the lights, all of the different glasses and cool jars and things of those sorts. So I'm really excited about it. So let's get into it. All right, so this is the shelf that I was saying I had already built from the DMG. This is what takes up most of the image. I want to build the lower cabinet for it, which is what this series will be about. Pretty excited. This thing was a complete mess to build. If you are interested in how I built it, please do let me know down in the comments. Maybe I can make some shorts for you guys or something like that. But I think this thing turned out awesome. The last thing it needs is stain, but let's go on and start on the cabinet. Okay, so here is kind of my plan right off the bat. This is my drawing of what we will be doing here. This is what I've drawn up in order to kind of show what the base should look like when I'm finished. I am pretty happy with the design. We'll just see if I can execute it correctly. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I went to my local hardware store and picked out a 1-inch thick piece of edge glued pine for the sides, and I wanted to get the sides cut so that I could start thinking about how big everything was going to be and get ready to start actually building the box of it. The biggest difficulty here is I do not have a track saw, so I was using some pretty straight 1-bys in order to use as a straight edge and clamped them down to it and then just ran my normal saw across that and did the same for the rest of it, just trying to use a straight edge and clamped it down. It was not the easiest thing to do, but it worked well enough for what I needed, and if there's any small imperfections, you just try to sand them out and make everything level again. The next step here was to grab the parts that I'm going to use as supports and my faceplate, and I just measured them out, used a square to give me straight lines, and a chop saw to give me straight cuts. And there was a lot of cutting. I think in total there's probably almost 20 pieces that I had to cut, and it just ended up being a lot more than I thought, but it was fun, and yeah, so here we go. Once all the face plates were cut, the next step was to just stick it together, make sure it looks good, and I really liked the look of it. Definitely has a whimsical style look with those very small drawers, so after that I just had to go in and drill pocket holes in all of those pieces so that I could put them together. I will say this Craig pocket jig is absolutely awesome. You can hook your shop vac up to it to suck all the shavings out of it, and it's just really nice. This is not a sponsor, but I really enjoy this jig. Makes it extremely easy, and again, to every single one of those pieces that I had cut, I have to go in and drill pocket holes in either side, so this was a huge time saver for me. But once all of those were pocket holed, I decided it was time to put it together. So I just added a little bit of glue, clamped these down with my square in there just to make sure everything was actually square, because I built too many things where it ended up not being square, and then I screwed it together and just did this consistently until the entire faceplate was built. And guys, the biggest thing here is I'm not using any fancy tools. I don't have a big workshop. You can see I'm literally just working out of my garage. And I'm trying to build something that is way above my skill level, but I'm hoping that it turns out well. But again, you don't need super fancy tools or anything like that to build some cool stuff. So if you got an idea, just go after it, because this was a lot of fun and I'm excited to keep moving forward on it. Alright, but once the border was actually built, needed to go in, make sure I measure everything out for the uprights for the drawers, and here I just did that, measured it out, made sure they were in the correct place, did the same process, clamped them down with my square, and then screwed them in as well. It took me a little while after that to actually go in and figure out exactly how big my drawers were going to be, you know, whether it was going to be 1.5 inches at the top, which seemed like a really small drawer, but that happens. And you can also see here, unfortunately, one of my pocket holes actually kind of split the wood there, but I'll just be sanding that down and filling it in later, and it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So once I came up with a decent plan on exactly how big all my drawers were going to be, I just went through, marked them out, put the boards in place, and then did the exact same process as before, making sure you're clamping them down, trying to make them as square as possible with your square, and just putting in some glue and some screws and calling it a day on that front plate. And now that the face plate is complete, I needed to get something for the bottom of it. I had an idea on how I wanted to do this in my drawing, and then I actually changed it to something that I think is going to look a lot better. But I did want another piece of that pine that is edge glued. I just think it's really nice material and ends up looking extremely nice. So just like before, doing the same thing using some clamps, I cut a perfectly straight line on that, and then I go around with the router to give me a nice beveled edge. So, unfortunately, the bearing came off of the bottom of my router bit and made a little blemish, but this isn't supposed to be perfect, so we're just going to keep moving. Yeah, and like I said, unfortunately that bearing came off and it kind of started pressing into the wood itself, but I'll just go back here in a minute and actually just sand it down with any, imperfections that I see, make it look really nice again, and then the spot where it actually came off and really pressed into the wood, I just take some wood filler and fill that back in, and I'll go back and sand that later as well. Like I said previously, I do not own a table saw, and unfortunately I used the router on all 4 sides of that bottom piece, and the back was supposed to be flat, so I did have to take that over there, cut that back off, fix the sides from that mistake as well, and I luckily needed to cut down some other boards anyways, so I just took those over there, did that, and then put some pocket holes in them, took them back home so I could get it all put together. Of course, once I was home, I realized that we did not have the table saw set correctly when we cut the bottom feet, so I did have to go in on those and sand them back down to where they were, perfectly matched so that I don't have a huge wobble in the table. Probably should have just taken them back over there, but I just decided that would be too much work. It is, a decent drive, so just sanded them down and they look pretty level. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. Alright, and for my favorite part, actually putting all of that hard work together. So I started by putting these 90-degree clamps on the top, and then flipped it so I could put the back and top supports in. Did that, doing the exact same thing as previously, where I just put pocket holes in them, and then we'll put a little bit of glue and screw it all together. The only thing I will mention here, that I did a little bit differently is I did make a gap with a couple of 1/4 inch shims on this back piece, so later on I can just slide a 1/4 inch piece of plywood down the back and then nail it on. That way it makes it a lot easier on me later. The next part to go on here was the faceplate. This was pretty easy now that most of the box was structurally sound. I just put some glue down, used some clamps, and just used those pocket hole screws, put them right through, and I didn't have any issues this time, no splitting, anything like that. Like I said, that Craig jig really is awesome, and so that's that. And basically the box is built. Last thing to do is put the bottom on it. The last step here was to put the bottom onto the box itself, and that was pretty easy. I just marked out where the box needs to be sitting, and then marked out exactly where all my screws need to go. And once I did that, it was pretty easy. I flipped up the board, clamped it together, and screwed it all in. The only thing I will add with this step is I did make a small jig out of 1x1s just to pre-drill my holes so that I didn't split any of the wood. And is what that jig does is basically just make it to where you can drill dead straight. So it's just a nice, easy, quick, cheap way to make sure that you're drilling straight holes. And then once you start the hole, it's pretty easy to drill a straight hole after that. I also went back after drilling all the holes and countersunk all of them just to where these screws actually sat flat, since I was going to put feet on this. And that's pretty much it. Alright guys, so this is what I've done this week. I will continue working on it, coming up in the next couple of videos hopefully. And I just ran out of material, ran out of time for the week, but I'm pretty proud of where it's gotten. I think it's looking extremely good. It definitely has a couple of things that need to be sanded down, like it sticks out a little bit there. In the video you can see that one of the screws came through the front a little bit. Didn't even really come through, just split the wood. So I'll have to sand that down and fill it. But again, overall, just a little bit of sanding here and there. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. One of the next steps will be putting the runners in for the drawers and building the drawers themselves. And also cutting out the design that I'm going to have as the bottom front toe kick, basically. And putting on the sides. So that's probably what next week's video will be about, is getting the sides on, or the bottom feet on, getting the drawer walls in, and maybe start building some drawers and getting some sliders. So I hope you guys like this. If you did, please do like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.